And please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, rock stars? Welcome back to the Raw Unscripted show. Every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we are live and in your face on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you can imagine finding us. We are there. So if you're listening to us on the audio podcast, if you want to check out my ugly mug and check out my guest and go for the video cast, which I know a lot of people dig, feel free to catch us out. If you don't catch us out live, you can see us on replay, of course. And in the show notes of the podcast, all the links are in there as well to check out the video cast. So I invite you to do that. And by the way, speaking of the podcast, thank you for being one of the 20 something countries that we're in right now. We're in the top 10%. I keep checking the statistic probably about once a quarter. And so I'm so appreciative of you guys tuning in from all over the world, sending me your messages and your emails, letting me know that you appreciate the real talk, that you appreciate the value that I bring to you guys every single week. We're on show number 270. We've been doing this since 2019. There are some amazing shows. So if you're just checking us out for the first time, feel free to go back and check out some of those podcasts, because I promise you, and I don't say this very often, I promise you, you will change. This is what I invite you to do. 3 things out of each podcast. You think 270 podcasts times 3. I don't know what that is. It's a lot. I'm not very good at math, but 3 action items every single week. You watch one every single week and you apply those 3 action items. Guess what? In 6 months to a year, you are a different person. And people come to me and they want me for coaching. I do life coaching, mindset coaching, whatever you want to call it. And people come to me and say, Chris, I would love to work with you, but I can't afford it. I promise you this, just watch or listen to the podcast, take 3 things out of each show, which I promise you there's well more than 3. Do those every week, every single week, and you will change, and you will see the trajectory of your life change. And this show will be absolutely no different. So if you're tuning in to us live, we offer you the opportunity to ask us questions. This is an amazing opportunity to ask us questions, get to know us a little bit better, because me and my guest are just going to talk about what it takes to have a kick-ass, unstoppable life. That's what this is all about. I help you overcome your excuses to be a rock star in your life. And really, that's what it has taken me to become where I'm at, from being a 7th grade dropout who went back and got his master's degree, built this amazing life. 2 things: I never stopped and I never gave myself any excuses. And hence, that's why I'm called the No Excuses Coach. So tonight's show is going to be amazing. I encourage you to do this. Take notes. Again, find 3 action items that it is you take from this conversation, start applying them in your life, and things will change. And here's the other thing I'm going to ask you. There's no fee for the show. There's no charge for the show. But what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you get value out of it, when you get value out of it, please consider sharing this with some words and say, hey, listen, I checked out Chris and Matt. Here's some things I learned, check it out for yourself. And then also just go do one nice thing for somebody else. The world is chaotic. As of the recording of this, as of the airing of this, it's July. It's actually July 2nd, 2024. And there's a lot of things going on in the world, whether you live in the United States, whether you live in Canada, whether you live in Russia, wherever it is you're in the world. Things are pretty chaotic right now. And I just invite you to seek first to understand, number 1, and number 2, go out there and lift somebody else up if you're had the ability to do so. And I know you do. I have a friend of mine who's homeless, who does nice things for people every single day. We can all do this and help make this world a much better place for our kids and our kids' kids. So there's my PSA. There's my public service announcement. And without any further ado, my guest tonight was introduced to me by Mike Phillips. So Mike, if you're watching or listening, thank you so much for introducing us. So let's please welcome to the Raw Unscripted show, Mat Koenig. Thank you very much, Matt, for being here. Did I pronounce your name right?
Koenig. It's all good, bro. Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm stoked to be on here with you, Chris.
Really. Koenig, thank you, man. I appreciate it. The one thing I loved about you right away is I'm all about teaching people how to become rock stars. I love music, as you can tell. This was not something I did intentionally. It's just the way my studio is, and when I set up my camera, I was like, all right, cool. I have tattoos of music. I love music. I should have been a musician, but I love the fact that you're a rock star. You deal in rock star situations. What does it take for people to become rock stars?
Dude, it's so funny. When we came up with the name for our company years ago, my closest friend, also named Chris, by the way, Chris
Nice.
Spear, shout out to Tip of the Spear. When we were coming up with it, we came up with it because we wanted to put on an event, like an automotive conference. And we were trying to come up with a name, and Chris was like, dude, everybody wants to be a freaking rock star. He's like, that's what we should call this event. And so we literally called it the Rockstar Auto Conference. And we were like, we're gonna play rock and roll music to get people to try and win tickets. They had to do, remember Cameo, where you'd lip sync to songs? It was like app. So we had people doing Nickelback Rockstar, right? They'd do this little lip sync of them singing it and post it on social and tag us in it. And so then when we were like, oh man, we got to buy it. We had 2 other companies that we own. We were like, we gotta buy a DBA and name and everything. We're like, well, let's look. And so Rockstar Designs LLC was available, and so that's how it got born, was from that name. But then, like, I've always been a tattooed up guy, you know. It was down to here, and then you start your own businesses and you're like, I don't have to work for anybody, I don't care, I'm just gonna
Right.
let it go. And then, you know, in the past couple of years, the hands and all that. And
Ooh.
so it's like, it's just kind of become the brand. Like, I'm always in a black V-neck. Like, I'm tattooed up. If somebody doesn't like me, I'm like, God bless you, man. Like, we don't have to like each other. I don't need to speak at your event. If you want to stay broke, it's cool. Like, whatever. Like, we're good.
Right.
But yeah, just kind of the rock star mentality, though, to be one, dude. I think people just have to go, you know what? I'm great the way I've been created, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to live my best life. I'm going to put 100% forward, and I'm going to make everybody else around me enjoy their best life. Like, if I'm coming in the room, they're going to be better when I leave, whether
Yep.
they want to or not, is the goal, you know? So to me, that's a rock star life, dude. Just, man, leaving a wake, like, when you come through a place. But it's different than what most people think. I think now where I'm at in life, it's like leaving a wake of goodness behind you, you know?
Oh hell yeah, yeah. I've that's what I've been teaching people how to become rock stars, because you're absolutely right. Who doesn't want to become a rock star? So my first question, my first real question for you is, what do you want to get across most to people tonight? This show's about inspiration, motivation. You heard a little snippet of my story that I was a seventh grade dropout at 13 years old, and I went through a bunch of stuff, to become the man I am today. So what do you want people to leave this conversation knowing and feeling in their heart?
That no matter where they're at, their story's not over.
Yeah.
Like, they're just, like it says on my wall, they're just one moment away, man.
Yeah.
Like, we've all got a story, dude. Like, you know, for me, I made it through high school, but the summer after, I almost got killed by a dude on America's Most Wanted for a drug deal going bad.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I grew up in, like, extreme poverty. Like, my wife and I talk about it. My dad, he ran through women like people run through TV shows. Like, all my siblings are from different mothers. He was like Deuce Bigelow. And then in my mom's side, the every other weekend when I was there, it's bikers. And I don't mean like Sons of Anarchy wannabes. I mean patched up, you know, meth heads beating their wives, having sex in public. And this is what I grew up watching. And so
Wow.
and so poverty and crime and poverty. And I was like, man, what hope is there for that? Right? Like, it's a trip to look back now,
Sure.
it's almost 49, and go, man, that's what I grew up in. And at 17, I'm, you know, selling pounds of weed, and a guy tries to kill me who ends up fleeing the country for killing someone else. I only get to go back home a year and a half later after seeing that he's on America's Most Wanted and fled the country. And then fast forward time, you know, I'm a dad now, a granddad now.
Whoa.
My
Holy
wife and
shit.
I are, yeah, bro. My wife and I are, we're, you know, I was a teen parent, all that jazz, and now here we are. I own my company. I don't have to answer to somebody else, and we're planting a church that's so different than what people do in the South, and it's not a life I would have pictured,
Right.
but I go, it's because your story's not over, man. Like, if you don't like the story you're living, you can just start writing a new one, like, now. So I hope that people take away from this, like, wherever they're at, like, even if their life is good, to go, are you done? Are you done,
Yeah.
though? Because if your life is good, you do know there's great, right? Do you want great? Like, start writing the new story. Like, what has to? I think Hormozy said it. Alex Hormozy.
Oh
I
yeah.
think
I've
said
got his
this
book right
once.
there.
Yeah, $100 million offers, $100 million lead.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I love him, bro. But it's funny because I think he was the one that said it, was like, he had made the point, if you're afraid to do something, stop and ask yourself, what would not afraid me do right now?
Right.
Like if you're afraid to make this change in your life, okay, if you weren't afraid, though, what would that action look like? And then it's like, then just do it, for God's sake. Like, just do it. Like,
Yep.
rewrite your story, start now. Like, you're on page one. And man, it's a hard thing for us to grasp, especially when we're in the midst of the shitstorm. But
Sure.
dude, I think it's a beautiful thing when when that light goes off and we're like, wait a minute, I don't have to stay where I'm at. I could
Yeah.
change this. This is dope. Like, let's go. So
Uh-huh.
I hope
Every
people
single
take
day
that
in every
away.
single way. That's what I teach people every single day. And every single way, you get a brand new start. You wake up, you could be refreshed. You can sit there and say, okay, yesterday is just electric energy in my brain. I don't need to subscribe to the identity that I had yesterday. Today, I get to be that different person. Today, I get to take that one particular action that's going to set me apart from the person I was yesterday, the person I'm going to be tomorrow. And so I love that. So you kind of just skirted around some challenging times in your life. I'd like to know what your lowest point in your life was and what it is that you've learned from it in retrospect.
Bro, there is not enough time in this podcast to talk about the lows. But the lowest low, like everybody's low is different for a reason, but I'll tell you in retrospect where I felt the lowest in
Okay.
my life.
Sure.
So my wife and I, we started dating in 2017 and we've been married since 2020. In August 2020 we got married. So
Oh, right,
my
right in the middle of the beginning of the COVID pandemic.
yeah,
Yeah.
like 5 months in. So I had a conference I was putting on in Vegas at a, I won't say the name of the hotel because I don't want to cause any problems, but I had an event that was it's 14 grand for the room for the day. And it was scheduled for March 14th, which is the Monday that Vegas closed, by the way.
Wow.
So the Friday before, I get my last cancel from my last attendee and last speaker. And I'm like, man. So I reach out to this hotel and I'm like, hey, we're just going to have to postpone it. Obviously, the pandemic, nobody knows what's going on, whatever. And long story long, we got it all worked out, whatever. But like, this was paid for. And then everything collapsed. And this was the only business I had at the time. Like I had
Ooh.
sold off my ownership in other companies and that money was gone. And then this collapsed and I was like, I have nothing. Like I had already downsized out of my house to an apartment. And mind you, like I went from owning multiple companies, co-owning a couple, singularly owning one. My life was a 4,200 square foot house, a couple Benz, Range Rovers, motorcycles, jungle cats. Like I was just stupid. I was Jersey Shore idiot for a minute. But like, when you don't look at your bank account ever, because you don't have to, like,
Right.
that was the life I was living. It was gone in 60 days, gone.
I got
House
a friend of mine that
gone.
went through that.
Car gonna get picked up on Monday, gone. And I reached out to my now wife and I said, listen, I love you. You didn't sign up for this. I just lost every single thing I have, like every penny. You don't deserve to walk into this. I go, so if you leave, I'll be heartbroken, but I won't be mad at you because you didn't sign up for this. That was the lowest I felt. I was like, I'm going to be a husband. My job's going to be to protect and provide, and I can't provide, right? Like, I'm like, everything that I know how to do is collapsed for now. Now, of course, I didn't think past the moment. I was just in chaos, right?
Sure, of
But
course.
that's the lowest that I felt was like, here's this amazing woman. I outkicked my coverage. Like, she was a good human, and she chose to see me as one while I was still being a giant douche nozzle. And the way she would talk about me was like, oh man, he's so great. He's the best. He's the best fiance ever. He's the best. And I'm just like, I'm out 5 nights a week drinking. Like she lived in Washington, I lived in Michigan. I would fly out there every month. Like so we're 3,000 miles apart, long distancing for years while I'm waiting for my daughter to
Wow.
graduate high school. She was a senior, so she was with me on the weekends. But like during the week when she was with me, like I'm out 5 nights a week drinking, karaoke, bar trivia. Like I was not, and I would not be somebody I would look at and go, man, that's a great dude. You should totally marry him. Like didn't
Right.
matter the money. Like I was just like, I just looked like an idiot. And she always spoke so good to me. So it's like when I was like, wait a minute,
I got
I
to
didn't
live up to
deserve
this
her in the
now.
first place. And now I can't provide for her. So I felt at my lowest then. But man, by the grace of God, we got through it. Thankfully, she had a great career and she carried us for the first year and a half. First year of our marriage. But yeah, like it was insane.
So what
Um,
did you learn from that experience? Since it was actually, I mean, really recent too. And thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah, no, dude, keep it real, right?
Yeah.
Raw and unscripted. Here's what I learned, man. For me, when we got engaged and like we early in dating, we were like, we're dating for the purpose of getting married. We had both been married a couple times before and we knew how to do it wrong. So like it was like, okay, I was that guy who was like, I'm never gonna date again, let alone get married.
Right. I
Like
was with you. Yep.
what I learned from this was there's actually somebody there who would love me like unconditionally, right? Short of like infidelity, of course, but who loved me for me and who saw the person that I should be. And not in a way of going, you're broken, I need to change you, but going,
Sure.
like she always spoke of me at the level that really I should be, right?
Hmm.
Like she put me up here, not in an unrealistic way, but in a loving you're that good way. And what
Right.
I learned was like, wow, people like that exist. Like it's possible to love that way. And fast forward time, like we've only been married, it'll be 4 years in August. But like I said, we mastered doing it wrong before. And then this when we got married, we just made the decision to frame our marriage in around this small section in the book of Ephesians about like loving community, how husbands are supposed to love wives and vice versa. And we were just like, if we think this is the best way to live, then this is how we're going to commit to living toward each other. So I'm like, I'm that guy that, well, you'll laugh at this. I'm that, like, I will tell you, like, I will lay my life down for my wife. Mike Phillips will tell you this, because Mike, he's one of my best friends in the whole world. He's family, bro. I love him. But he would tell you, like, I'm, if you were like, dude, Matt, you're a dick, I don't like you, whatever, man. I could turn the other cheek, right? I'm just like, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to.
How did you get that way in life? I want to interrupt you on that because I want you to go back to the story. But how did you get that way? Because so many people cannot overcome the fact of what other people think of them.
How did I get to the point of like being able to turn the cheek on me? Like, it's still not easy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I will stew inside. Like, it'll take a minute. But the truth is, for me, I had to kind of realize, like, I'm not that important. I'm not that big of a deal. Like, the world doesn't revolve around that. Like, so this will really trip you out. Only a few years after almost getting killed by America's Most Wanted guy. Like, man, at 24 years old, I just started believing in Jesus. And I thought it was a little cult. This is like 17 people in a band room. And I was like, this is a cult where somebody's going to sacrifice a baby here soon. I'm out. Like, this is nuts. Turns out it was just a group of people that were like, hey, we think that the way this Jesus dude's doing stuff's the best way to live. So we want to do it. And I was like, what? Like, this is a trip. It's not what I think of church. Like, I remember grandma dragging me in my khaki pants, a fat kid in a little polo shirt that's too tight. Like, this is horrible, right? So I had that relationship. Then I walked away from God after my children's mom and I got divorced. I was 7 years acting like the Jersey Shore in my early 30s. I was dumb.
Douche nozzle. I remember.
Dude, that's so bad. Like, that was so bad. But so you say, how do I get to where I'm at now? It's because when I met my wife and I restarted that journey, I was like, let me shake off all the churchiness of it all,
right?
All the facade, and go, if this dude's real and what he's saying is real, and this is the best way to live, what would my life look like if I did that? And the hardest part was to turn the other cheek, because I had an ex-business partner, not my homie Chris, but another dude who, he was a partner that financed one of our companies. That was his role. And he wanted to start doing more control. And we're like, you can't, like, you don't know what you're doing. And you don't know anything about software development. You don't know anything about marketing. All you know how to do is write checks. Stay with what you're good at.
Right.
So what he thought he'd be real good at was he cleaned our bank account out. And Chris and I were in a lawsuit with him for 2 years. Well,
oh my God.
In the midst of all of that, I had sold a company to someone else who worked for me and made a sweetheart of a deal for that person. And when the client billing got transferred, they stopped paying. So overnight, I lost $17,000 a month, like, just gone. And so I was the guy that before this is me. Like, I'm like, let's go to blows. Like, I don't care. We could be in the middle of the biggest conference that I'm speaking at. Oh, am I sharing the stage with Google and Facebook in an hour? Yes, but I have time to beat your ass before that. Let's throw hands. Like, I just carried so much of that around because my ego, man, my pride. Right. And so I meet her and I'm like, I can't be this guy. Like, I cannot be this.
You almost wanted to live up the expectation, the perception of the persona that she built up for you. And that's kind of, I think, maybe what she was doing. She was planting seeds to say, you may not see it for yourself, but let me see it for you. And let me build that vision for you. And you said, hey, let me walk that path. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, dude. And the fact, like, you can see the movie posters on the wall. I got Nobody over there. I got John Wick. Like, I love, I did all kinds of fighting stuff for years, studied different combat sports. But the truth is, realizing with her what grace looked like back and forth helped me be better with other people. So I'm like, well, I guess everything doesn't have to be like, you don't have to fight your way to get stuff. Sometimes you can just have a conversation, and sometimes you can just disagree, and that's okay. But I would say it took two things. One, I had to meet a human that I could trust and truly see someone who would love me and who would trust me to care for her heart, right? And so I think that was one. And then the other thing, dude, was just my relationship with God. Like, I just started reading, and the stuff that I'd thought I knew when I was younger, you get a little older and you realize, like, that's a real cool churchy thing, but that has absolutely nothing to do with Jesus and how he said to live. And it's not about escaping here and going there. It's about bringing heaven to earth right where I'm at. Like, how do I love my neighbor? Like, oh, my neighbor can't pay their mortgage. He lost his job. You know what we can do? Put cash in an envelope and throw it under the doorstep. Like, nobody has to know. Like, it's not about, like, don't thank me. Like, let us love you. You won't let us. Well, we'll just do it anyway. You know, like, stuff like that. So I think choosing to be generous choosing to be kind when I didn't want to be is what helped change my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think acknowledging that you don't want to be is a big thing, though. It's like, you know, when you ask one of your buddies to help you move, you're like, bro, can you help me move? And they're like, oh, sure, bro. And then all of a sudden something comes up, right? And you're like, dude, why don't you just say no? But then you call the other buddy, and the other buddy's like, bro, the last thing I want to do on a day in July is freaking help you move, but you're my boy. I'll do it. Exactly. Man, I love that dude. I know he hates it, but he's doing it. And so I even almost appreciate it more, right? But it's like, so it's kind of the same thing, you know, when you're trying to make a pivot to go, okay, the way I used to handle things was aggressively, and I just go off on somebody and try and verbally tear them down. When you go, that's what I want to do, but instead I'm going to say, you know what? I hope you have an awesome day, man.
Yeah,
I'm out. Like,
love wins every time.
You feel better.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Rob Bell said it years ago when he wrote a book called Love Wins. It's true, but it does in the end. Like, it's the way to go, man. But it's not always easy, and I mean, sometimes you still end up throwing hands. But
yeah, I've been down that road. I've been down that road where I tell people, like, you know, like, oh, you're always so nice and you're always so this, and I'm like, yeah. I said, but you don't understand. I have street Chris. There's street Chris. And so initially somebody cuts me off, and I'm like, you motherfucker, I'm going to decapitate you, right? Yep. And then I'm just like, have a nice day. But that's what we have to do. We have to have that situational awareness to sit there and say, is that the person that I choose to continue to become? Right? Yes, that's kind of part of who I am, but I have this ability to choose. Okay, can love win over anger? Is anything gonna? I used to ask myself, will this matter in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, or 5 weeks? Is this really gonna happen? What is it I'm focusing the most on? Am I focusing on the people who are not using their turn signals, or am I focusing on the people who are using their turn signals? I just helped somebody the other day. They're like, oh my God, I can lose my mind. And I said, I used to be that person. I said, but here, try this. I said, focus on all the people that are using their turn signals. I said, you will find that 80-90% of the people out there will use their turn signal. And then here's what you do. Not only just notice it and say, thank you. Say thank you. And then also you're going to see it, and you're going to see it, and you're going to see it, because here's how it works. And I know you're going to understand this, Matt, sorry. I was thinking about, I know I'm Mat Koenig. So I sit there and I tell people, like, look around your room, wherever you guys are at listening or watching this, look around your room and tell me everything that's red, right? Do it right now. Like, look around, like red. Okay. Now tell me what's blue. But Chris, you told me to look for what's red. There's this thing called a reticular activation system in our head, the RAS, and I think you're familiar with it. So what it is that you focus on is what you will continue to get. And that's why it's so important. I teach people how you start your day matters. So before my eyes open, I say what I'm grateful for. I'm not a particularly religious person, but I believe in spirituality. I say what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my son sleeping in the room next to me. I'm grateful for a roof over my head. I'm grateful for my beautiful wife. I'm grateful for the income that I have. I'm grateful for my animals, and I name them all off by name. I have 5 cats, 1 dog, and 2 fish. Actually, 1 cat outside too that I adopted, or she adopted me. And then the next thing I do is I set my intentions for the day. My intention is to be present and playful with my son. My intention is to use my words and my actions to make this world a better place. My intention is to be a better loving husband. My intention. And then my last thing is I say my I am statements. And most of it, I just have to say, I am peace. I am peace. I am love. I am worthy. Whatever it is that I'm going through in that moment, I just remind myself that this is what I am. I'm deserving. And so I tell people that, like, how you start your day, and then as you're going throughout your day, if you have moments, which I have moments, I'm human, is you sit there and say, did I set the intention to be a douchebag today? Did I set the intention to be distracted while I'm playing with my son? Right? No, I didn't. Okay. Whatever becomes acceptable becomes inevitable. And so I sit there and shift in that moment, and I sit there and I'll say what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the dry erase boards. I'm grateful for the ceiling fan. I'm grateful for the television I have in front of me. I'm grateful for this amazing conversation that I'm having with Matt. What we focus on is what we generate more of. The one thing I want to ask you, because I think this is going to be a great question for you and for the audience to listen to. Before I ask it, I just want to acknowledge a few people. We got Robert Broker in the house. He says, good evening, Christopher and Matt.
What's up, Robert?
Thank you, Robert, for being here. I appreciate brother. We got Dennis from China. What's up, Dennis? He says, happy Wednesday morning from China. Thank you very much, Dennis. Appreciate you tuning in. So here's a great question. So oftentimes we tell people, Matt, I'm doing the best I can. Right? I'm doing the best I can. And I found myself when I came home from work, I used to be in corporate for a long time, had a very successful career. And I came home, I was put my keys and stuff on the dresser. And I talk out loud to myself. I'm one of those crazy people that talks out loud. And I feel like my outside voice is smarter than my inside voice. And I can go into that later. But I sat there and I said to myself, I did the best I could today. And then I stopped for the first time ever in my life. I'm 55 now. I think this was probably about 7-8 years ago. And I sat there and I said, I did the best I could today, because I always recap my day. And I stopped myself and I said, Chris, was that your best? Was that really your best? And then I stopped and I said, ooh, where does that come up? Where does that come from? I'm always about picking things, like getting to the root of something. And I said, where does that thing saying I did the best I could come from? And I started peeling back the onion, and it went back to when we're kids. Like, Chris, did you do the best you could on your homework? Did you do the best you could on the chores, whatever it was? Yeah, I did. And so many times people say, what? Do better next time. But nobody asks us how we're going to do better. And what's the qualifier? What's the measurable? What are the different actions we're going to take? And so I found myself in that moment. I called myself out of my own bullshit. I'm like, Chris, that was not your best. You're just saying you did your best because you want to get on with the next thing in your life. But how about we sit there and define how you could have done this better? And so I got a pen and paper out and I started analyzing the situation. And I'm like, well, I could have done this letter. I could have listened better. I could have listened better. I could have paused before I reacted, and I could have responded. And so I picked those things apart, and I sat there and I thought, okay, this is doing your best. So what is your recommendation for people? Maybe draw on an experience for yourself, how we can do our best. And I teach people how to do this, but I'm curious to see what your perspective is on this, given everything that you've been in your life. How can we get people to do their best and call themselves out on their own bullshit?
I think it starts with, and I think you nailed it when you started with the I am statements, and that's knowing where your identity comes from. Now, listen, and you said like, you're not religious, right? But spiritual, right?
Yep.
So like for me, I think that was a big pivot point in my life, because most of us, when we go, where's my identity? Where do I come from? We look back at our childhood, our parents, our the life experience, and we go, that's who I am. But it's like, no, those were moments. Those are just moments in a story. Like, that's it, right? Whatever. But to me, I go, okay, well, it starts with going, who am I? Well, out of all of the things in what I believe in the scriptures, God breathed everything into existence, right? Light, stars, water, whatever, but not humans. He got his hands dirty. He put his hands in the dirt and he went, boom, I'm making you, Matt, you, Chris, in my image. And I'm like, oh. And so there's this story later, which everybody points to this interactions later on in the story. There's this interaction where these dudes come in, and these Pharisee guys, and they say to Jesus, they're like, hey, should we pay taxes to Caesar? And this goes back to the identity question, I promise. Wow. Should we pay taxes to Caesar? And he's like, well, who has a denarius? And the guy's like, I do. And he pulls out this coin. He's like, whose image is on it? He's like, Caesar's. He goes and give to Caesar what Caesar's. And I've heard so many pastors, that means you're supposed to pay taxes, or it means you're supposed to give. No, the point was this. Well, the guy should have never had that coin in the temple. It was dirty. But forget that. What Jesus said to him was, look, the image that is on that coin belongs to the person who stamped the image on it. The point was, do you know whose image is stamped on you? That's who you belong to. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, that was good. Like, they got me. So for me, I would say it starts with my identity. Who am I and whose am I? Well, I'm creating the image of the creator of the universe. Number one, that means if I believe that, I mean, dude, I'm unstoppable. Yeah. Like, I know where my help comes from. Like, don't get me wrong. That's not some, I'll feed you baby birds. Just say the magic prayer, and then I'll just dump gold in your mouth. None of that crap. Right. But the truth is this, like, recognizing, like, if I believe that there's a divine creator, he wouldn't create me to hate life and just for it to suck. Hell yeah. Instead, Amen. He's like, hey, I made you in my image. Do you know what I've got? Never abundant joy, love that overflows, the strength to love people that suck. I got all those things that you and your flesh wouldn't get, but you get them because you're mine. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think people need to recognize, like, we aren't the center of the universe. But the creator of the universe says you're worth everything. So stop settling, man. Stop settling for growing up and watching your family in poverty and going, I guess that means I will be. What it means for you is it's going to be a hell of a lot harder than the kid that was born rich. Right. But harder isn't impossible. Harder isn't impossible. That just means you got to put in a little more work. And the other thing I think is, Tony Robbins said this. He said you'll find true fulfillment in life when you trade your expectations for appreciation. And I think the other thing is this: if you want to if you want to really elevate your life, stop setting expectations for other people that isn't fair to them. Yeah. But also stop setting unrealistic ones for yourself. If last year you made $30,000. And today you watched a webinar from Russell Brunson, you're like, well, now I can make $7 million. No, dude, you don't know how to make 35 yet.
Right.
Like,
It's a great point.
if you can go from 30 to 35, celebrate the win.
Yeah.
If you can go from 30 to 70, celebrate the win. Like, people think if growth doesn't happen like that, it's not happening. But it's just like, I was 315 sloppy fat pounds when I got married to my wife in August of 2020. Now I'm down to 260 and definitely not shaped like I was shaped then, right?
Hell
I still
yeah.
don't have like the Chris Rausch muscles yet, but I'm getting there.
Nice.
But the thing is, like, I could have just went, well, this is who I am. My family's fat. They all eat like horrible. Like, I guess that's me. But I didn't also go, well, I got to be 180 pounds. I went, hey, how do I get from 315 to starting with a 2?
Right.
How do I get from 290 to 280?
Like, that's some great advice.
Just small, like, baby steps are steps, right? Like, a baby step is a step.
Yep.
There you go. Right. So I would say that's how, bro.
I love that. I tell people it's the 1% rule. Like, so many times we're sitting there looking the enormity of the goal, like using your weight loss example. I've helped a ton of people lose weight. I'm like, how can you just have a little bit less calories and expend a little bit more? Every single day, just a little bit. Can you walk a little bit more? Can you eat a little bit less? Can you have a little bit more water? Can you not eat past 7? Can you replace, white bread with whole grain bread? Can you do all these little bitty things? Because over that period of time, that 1% every single day, as you start to feel better, you start to do better. And as you start to do better, you start to feel better. And as you start to accomplish more, it all builds upon itself. And so it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be overnight. But what's going to happen is you're going to look back at yourself as 6 months ago and go, wow, that's a former version of myself. I'm so excited. What can I be next in the next 6 months? Well, and I always work with people in my coaching in 6 months increments. I tell people, okay, pick it out in 3 months, like do it in a quarter. Like, what can I do in the next 3 months? Okay, I'm going to develop this workout program and this eating program. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut out alcohol and sugar. And that's why I'm going to jumpstart my situation. So I love the fact that you talk about that, because it is doable. It is doable every single day, just a little bit, that 1%, that continual growth. There's a great book out there for people listening and like books. It's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, the former editor from Success Magazine. And it totally, when I was reading it, it sounded like I wrote it. Like, literally, I was like, yeah, that. Everything compounds upon itself, and it starts to make that result. There's something I want to know, and thank you for sharing that. I love what you're sharing. In what you've shared so far, I can sense there's been a lot of things that have happened to you. You've been backstabbed, you've been betrayed, you've had a lot of tough things happen in your family life. Talk to me about empathy and forgiveness, because so many people are stuck in hating, like, oh, that person fucked me over, and that I'm afraid of that, and I don't want to trust anybody, and and they're literally held back. And I've helped so many people. Like, what would it feel like to trust and have empathy for people? For me, I was physically abused, I was mentally abused, I was bullied at school. I mean, I had zero self-confidence, I had my ass whooped everywhere. But it wasn't until I wrote my memoir a couple of years ago, and it's going to be published this year. And one of the things, I had this anger and animosity towards my mom. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Mom, we were homeless. We had 18 cats in a fucking car. You had to buy cigarettes and cat food and dog food. And then we got to eat. And there was just like so much like frustration. I mean, I was grateful for it because it made me the man I am today. But it wasn't until I stopped and I said, wow, instead of looking at me and poor me, let me understand my mom a little bit more. And I'm like, why would she always tell me, like, I'm 4 years old? She would tell me, like, I'm 4 years old. I'm 4 years old. I'm like, the fuck you are. You're a fucking adult. God damn it. And she would say that. And I'm like, okay, let me stop. What happened when she was 4? Oh, that's right. Her parents got divorced. Her parents were in their early 20s. This was back she was born in 1942. The economy, the world, everything was much different. She was a female. And so I was like, how can I understand her a little bit better? I'm like, and here's where it really got to me, Matt. It was like, if I walked in her shoes, if I experienced the abuse that she experienced, if I went through the 60s and free love and all the men that gave her attention and the drugs and everything else, might I be like her? And as much as I did not want to admit it, and as much as I didn't want to say it, I'm like, yeah, I probably would have been like her. And so once I found that empathy and forgiveness for her, and I started looking at other people I worked with that frustrated me, that I wanted to punch in the throat, I'm like, let me understand Mark a little bit more. This guy, Mark Denton, that I used to work with, I'm not an angry person, but I wanted to nail this guy. And I'm like, what did this guy go through? And so I started looking at people as little kids in the sandbox. I'm like, what was he like as a kid? He was probably bullied and blah, 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 blah. And that's why he's this anal retentive prick. And so I said, Mark, can I take you out to lunch? And he was totally like, why, you want to kill me or something like that? I was always friendly and cordial to him. I said, I want to take you out to lunch. I want to say thank you he was in sales. I was in operations. And I just started asking him some questions about his life. I said, what was life as a kid for you? That's all I had to ask. And he spent 40 minutes talking about, I'm like, this is why he's fucked up. This is where it happened. And I once I found that empathy and love for him, all my anger and everything went away. And I started doing this with different people. And I found myself a more loving person. I found myself more accepting and tolerable and all these different things. And I found that I was freer. I was lighter. I was happier. What is empathy and forgiveness for you? Maybe you could pick a story in somebody in your life where, you know, whether it was your mom or somebody or a business partner. Talk to me about that road for yourself, because I feel the love. I feel like you got love for humanity, and I feel like you got love for yourself. And so I want to see where that came from.
I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I tried to shut it all off for the longest. It wasn't until my wife and I connected that I started even seeking to have empathy or care about anyone else. Because
it's a recent journey for you.
Yeah, well,
That's awesome.
and I think a big part of that though is because hurt people is what they say, right? So when you've been wounded, you tend to put up walls, right? And so like I got called out, and here's what empathy looks like: getting called out for it and owning it, right, and recognizing like, holy crap, like maybe I am doing this. My buddy Brad, who is also he's been a friend forever. One time we were playing bar trivia together, and we were talking about something, and I was like, oh well, whatever, he's a dick, on to the next one. Like, and he goes, dude, you're so quick to just be done with people. I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm like, if someone shows themselves to be a turd, like I don't swim in that toilet. Like I don't need them in my world. And he's like, but maybe they're just being a dick and they're having a bad day. Maybe tomorrow they're going to own it. I'm like, good. Then tomorrow they know how to call me. I haven't blocked them on everything yet. Like, whatever, dude. And I realized I was like, in the moment I was like, thought someone was like going to be crummy to me, I would freeze them out. Or if I thought something, I learned that I would self-sabotage a lot.
Yeah.
And so once I started realizing these patterns, I had to ask myself the question, why am I doing this? Well, I'm afraid of being hurt.
Yeah.
But wait, no, I'm way too cool. I don't get hurt, right? But I was like, shoot, yeah, yes, I do, a lot. And it's like, that sucks. It doesn't feel good, right? So I realized I was, but by putting those walls up, I was causing the hurt. And so then once I started, really the whole journey had to start with me forgiving me for acting like the dumbass I was being for 7 years.
That's the money shot right there.
Yeah, like, bro, once I realized, I was like, okay, I'm also worth forgiving.
Yeah.
Like I could say, I can forgive myself for bad choices, like, and I can start new. Once I did that, I think it then helped me in most, but not all. And I will tell you, there are boundaries where I will say, and I'll let you know that I do my very best, kind of going back to earlier, like I try and turn the other cheek when it's me, but I won't turn the other cheek if it's someone else that I'm defending. Like, I have very firm lines. My wife and my children, you cross either I love Jesus, I'm happy to let you meet him first. But I promise that your journey there will not be a fun one, because I'll drag it out. Like, everyone who knows me knows, like, I will love you, I will serve you, I will wash your feet. But if you say an ill thing about my wife, I will drop you in the middle of a church, because I got to lay down my life for her. Like, that's what I'm called to. But so in 95% of the cases, I think I try my best and fail often. So here you go. From a pastor, I try my best but fail often about the way I feel. I feel angry. I think where the win comes in is when you stop and go, okay, I recognize the feelings, but why is this, like, did I do anything to warrant this in the first place? No. Okay. And then something clicks with me that my wife has said before. She said, when she feels like there's friction with us, she just prays. She's like, God, if it's a me thing, reveal it to me. If it's me causing the problem, if it's a him thing, you deal with him. I can't change him. Like, you didn't call me to. And so for me, it's I kind of have to do that gut check when I'm starting to get, ticked off about something. And if I can recognize it, I'm like, okay, why am I even this upset? Is it really that big of a deal? I'm very grateful God put me with the most loving, compassionate, patient woman in the world.
What's her name? We keep referring to her as wife and woman. What's her name?
Dara
Dara,
is her
nice,
name, and
beautiful.
she's like a saint, bro.
Let's give her the props. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife Dara she is amazing. Even our good friend who's our old pastor in Washington, when we got together, he goes, "Dude, you outkicked your coverage." She is such a good human being.
Never heard
And
that
so for
term.
me, I'm like, she's helped me get that empathy back too. So, which is actually really interesting because I see her example it with what she's been through in her life, and I see how she's just got this heart for always seeing the best in people, and it's such an encouragement to me. So I think that's the other thing, dude, is you can't become empathetic and you can't love people in a vacuum. Like, it's like nothing drives me crazier than pastors who are like, go home and read your Bible. It's like Jesus said, go love people, like go be in community. He didn't say go sit at home and read your Bible because people didn't have one, ding dong.
Right.
Like, quit saying that. Like, is it important to read? Yes, but it's not more important than me loving Chris. And I know Chris said, "Hey man, we're having a cookout. Can you come?" Like, oh, sorry, Chris, I can't. I got to make an hour for my Bible time, bro. Stay up later. Do it on your own time. Go love Chris and be his friend. Like,
Exactly.
and so to me, I think, yeah, dude, it can't happen in a vacuum, and that's the hardest thing for those of us. And it sounds like from what you shared too, like with that, like temper sometimes the hardest thing is we feel like the best thing to do is withdraw from people. That way I don't my asshole doesn't spill over on them. But the truth is I need those people to remind me they're worth getting rid of this for.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that because it really is. Let's try to say that again. I had like 7 different things that were coming out of my brain. I wasn't like car crash. It is about love. It really is about love. I mean, I sit there. I mean, when I look at life, you can either look at it through the lens of love or the lens of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I've determined I always try to distill things down into their simplest form. I try to keep it simple, the whole keep it simple, stupid for me. And that way I want to be able to convey to somebody as quickly as possible to the root of something, what it is that they can focus on. If you're sitting there focusing on the fear of things, then you're going to live in that denial. You're going to live in that hate. You're going to live in that protectiveness. Like, oh, let me get the one up on them. I grew up with it. My mother always had to be right. So I came up with this thing. I don't own it, but I said, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And so I would stop and I would sit there. Okay, I can prove this guy wrong. I can prove this person wrong. I'm a smart person. But what am I going to do when I do that? I'm going to place them on the defensive. And what are they going to do? They're not going to really listen to me. They're going to start preparing their ammunition for what they're going to do to prove to me that I'm wrong or I'm incorrect. And it's going to be this back and forth thing. And it's going to be whoever raises their voice the most is going to quote unquote win. But I would ask myself, and this was back in my 30s, I'm like, does anybody really win? And I had this with a friend of mine, and I sat there and I'm like, no, dude, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And the more I said he was wrong, the more pissed off he got, the redder his face got. And I was sitting there analyzing him. I'm like, okay, this is not working. And so I would stop and I would sit there and say, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And then as I would sit there, the biggest thing that I learned that has been instrumental in my life was reading Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the one thing in there said, seek first to understand, then be understood. And when I shut this up and I open these up, this is again back in my 30s, I was pretty successful in my life, but I wasn't happy. I was validated and I had the ego and I was speaking on stages and I was doing all these things. But when I sat there and I said, can I shut up and really understand what Matt's saying? Can I shut up and understand what my wife is saying? Can I shut up and then ask more questions about that? And what might I learn about this person who I think is a dick? Oh, wow, we're more the same than we are different. Oh, wow, because I think he's a dick, I'm actually, if I'm honest with myself, I'm recognizing qualities in myself that I'm not liking in that person, because we don't often like in others what we don't like in ourselves. And so I've done this work on myself. I've gone to therapy. I've had my coaches. I have my mentors. I have people calling me, hey, Chris, you're fucking up right now. And that is so important. I want to switch gears for a second. We've already been going for 43 minutes. This is a phenomenal conversation. How do we ask for help? Because we've been dancing around the ego. We've been dancing around, being in our place and, and validating our thoughts and our actions. And this is why I am who I am. How do we ask for help? Because I think that is massive in our life, and stepping out of that egoic state. Like, I don't really care if people think I'm weak or anything else, because we all need help. And the sooner we ask for it and the sooner we accept and receive it. And I've had, trust me, I was not that dude. I was like, I'll show everybody and I'll do it myself. And I'll get 3 jobs. But once I would just shut up and say, like my coach, I just reached out to her one day. I said, can you help me? And that was so awkward for me to say, because I'm the one that always helps everybody else. But once I realized there's so much power in receiving, and when I started to receive and allow people to pour into me, I was that much better to be there for everybody else. And I was able to set that example. So talk to us about that. Talk to us about asking for help and getting out of that egoic state. because I see that that's a journey you've been on, and thank you for sharing that, because I mean, I know that's going to impact a lot of people.
Thank you, man. I think you said something really that just really resonated with me, and that is like, as we're trying to be the smart person, right? What we're trying to do, and I guess use it as a visible metaphor. It's like we want to hold on to what we have right now. Like
Sure.
I'm the sales trainer guy. I'm the closer guy. I'm the get it done. I'm the doesn't give two F's and drops F bombs when he's speaking with Google guy. Like who cares, right?
Right.
But the problem is when we're hanging on to stuff so tight, we don't have open hands to receive anything new.
Amen.
And my boy Grant Cardone said it years ago. He said, "If you're not growing, you're dying."
Yeah, it's
And
true.
I agree with that. So I think the asking for help, the way you do it, and again, I think the communities we run in matter. Okay,
True.
and so I don't care out at the bar, at the church. Man, I've had people at the bar that I play bar trivia with that were way more accepting than the people that I used to go to church with. Like I would
Yeah.
be some of them I'd be more apt to go, can you help me with, than the person over here, because this person has not established that they're a person that's out there to help. So
Mhm.
how do we ask for help? Well, I think number one, uh, we have to be for somebody else what we hope someone will be for us.
Oh, that's
So
good.
I'll
Go
give you
deeper
an
on that.
example. Yeah, like, yeah, we got to be for someone else what we want someone to be for us.
Yeah.
My wife uses the sentence that way. I've thought about it, I never phrased it that way. And Dara had said it one day, and I was like, that's so true. She's like, I just came to the realization if I wanted someone to be a mentor to me, I had to open myself up to be a mentor to someone, right?
Mhm.
So what does that look like when it comes to asking for help? Well, I think number one is I got to make sure that people that I can help know I'm available to help them. And so a real practical example is I've got a lot of buddies who are pastors, and they're some of the most isolated people in the world, because people want to be your friend and then they burn you, right? Or
Mhm.
you teach on a Sunday and they didn't like that you didn't mention something, or they didn't like that you didn't endorse their political guy. And now they hate you and you're a horrible pastor. And you're like, wait, but I thought we were also friends. Like, what does
Yeah.
my job title have to do with our friendship? Like, the preacher teacher is a job title, but we're in a relationship, right? So
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to reach out and make sure I'm that guy checking in on all of these guys every week to go, hey
Yeah.
man, what do you need, bro? How can I be there for you? How can I pray for you? Do you need anything at all? Like the answer is yes. What's the question? Like that's the relationship that these guys, like I tell them, like the answer is yes. What's the question?
Mhm.
Like that's where
I
we're at.
love that. That's so
So,
true.
but because of that, because I'm so willing to do it, and by the way, they rarely ask, of course, like, because none of us like to, but I've also led a couple men's groups, and still do, and we're about to kick off a how to be a husband marriage group, like to really teach guys like about the baggage they bring into relationships and how to not be a piece of garbage.
Sure.
Um, but like, so for me, because I'm so willing to help, it has helped humble me. I don't think you can ask for help until you've humbled yourself enough to realize you're not the center of the universe and that there's someone that knows more, right? So
True.
that, because being a corporate guy, like I was for years, I was a national training manager for cars.com. I'm the reason you can shop for a car in edmunds.com. Like I launched all of that in 2010, 11, 12. Like,
Wow.
so like you do all these things, right? And you're like, oh, I can't be seen as weak. And with
Mhm.
men, it's the real deal for us. Because if
True.
we ask for help, it's a sign of weakness, is what people think. But
Yeah.
to me, it's a sign of honesty and integrity and going, I don't have it all figured
Mhm.
out. And I think it goes back to something you said earlier, something Darren and I always say on our marriage podcast, like, don't just go through it, grow through it. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna move through life. You have a choice. You can either go through it or grow through it.
True.
But the other thing is that you had mentioned earlier, and I think this is why we have a hard time asking for help. There is so much good in the world that the bad stands out. See, we've been
Mhm.
taught to divide. We've been taught to look for the bad. That's what the news
Yeah.
conditioned us for, right? If it bleeds, it
Yeah.
leads.
Ugh.
So we're taught to look for the bad. But the funny part is the reason like that the bad stands out is because if you were to look at a white wall that's brand new and fresh painted, you won't appreciate the beauty of the white wall. You'll find the one speck of dust because
Mhm.
it stands out. But what our brain doesn't stop and do is go, wait a minute, 99.9997% of this is perfect and beautiful. Why am I focused on the one thing the one thing that sucks? Like
That
why
RAS. Yeah.
why, right? Because of that, we're afraid to ask for help because we're like, if I ask for help, they're going to think I'm weak. If I ask for help, they're going to think I don't know how to do my job. Whereas as an employer, I go, if you ask me for help, I want to make you the best you can be. Now, if you keep asking me the same thing 10 times, maybe I did a bad hiring job. Like maybe I didn't, ask you enough questions about your ability to retain things like the bathroom is the third door on the left or whatever.
Right.
Minimizing it to something super silly. But it's like, to me, I'm like, man, I want to help someone get better. I do. But I know that for me, like I do have a few guys that I will go to and be like, hey man, can you talk me down on this?
Yeah.
But you said something else too, and part of I think why we have a hard time is because we recognize our own failures in others, right? We see them, and I got the joy of experiencing that about 2 years ago with my wife and I. We were having an altercation with my stepdaughter's dad. Just he's not a good dude, whatever. And I was so mad. And I got off the phone and I was like ranting. And I said to Darren, why is he so selfish? Like this guy, why can't he put his kid first? I kid you not, bro. Like chill bumps.
Right.
There was like an audible voice in my head. And it's just Holy Spirit goes, does that look familiar to you? Is it like looking in a mirror?
Yeah.
And I was
mirror.
like, oh. But all I did instantly was flash back to telling my kids I'm trying to build a great life for them, when really I was living on the road 4 and 5 days a week to try and build celebrity for me and grow a business. And it was like I was just as selfish. I was that guy.
Yeah.
7 years earlier, I was that same person, and I felt so convicted about it. I clearly knew, call your kids. It's time to apologize. One by one, called all 3 of them. And dude, I'll tell you, my son, who was a Marine in basic training at the time, of course, just goes to his voicemail. And I write him a letter too. My daughter,
Sweet.
I hit her voicemail. God bless her. She's 20 years old. She ain't answering the phone for dad unless she needs money.
Right.
And she's 22 now. She's very responsive. She's a great kid. And my oldest, who's 30, he answered. And you'd have to know the whole story. But when his mom and I divorced, his uncles told him some terrible lies. So my son was like, man, he hated me for about a year. And even into adulthood, we had a very rough relationship. So I call and he answers. And I told him, I was like, dude, listen, here's what happened. I really felt like I got to call you and apologize. Like your whole life, I told you, oh, I'm doing this to build a life. And I go, Colin, I was so selfish, dude. I just wanted fancier cars, wanted to ball out, wanted to do this, wanted to do that. And he broke down. He goes, do you know how long I've been waiting to hear that? And I was like, but bro, victory. Like ever since then, this is where we're at. My son lives up in Michigan. He runs some cannabis stores. He makes hip hop music. He's doing a track with a guy in T-Pain's label right now.
Sweet.
And literally, I will get calls from him a couple times a month, like, "Hey, Dad, can you give me some advice on some stuff at work? Can you talk me through this?" And it's like that's what happens when you ask for help, for asking for forgiveness. That we all know somebody we got to do that with.
Oh yeah.
That's asking for help. And to me, those are the kind of breakthroughs. It's like you got to humble yourself enough to go, I ain't perfect. I've done some stupid stuff, man. And now I got to pick up the phone and make it right. I did it then. I did it in business a few years before that. I called some people that we just had some animosity with, me and my business partner, Chris. And we had a guy that was going to speak at one of our conferences. And he said, well, I'm excited to speak, but I've been told, Matt, that if for any reason you and I kind of fall out, that you're kind of relentless, and that would be horrifyingly bad for my career. And I knew who told him that. And I was like, this guy, John, like he doesn't even know me, and he's this and he's that, because I knew they were friends.
Right.
And he goes, when's the last time you talked to him? And I'm like, I don't know, 2 years ago. Why would I talk to him? And he goes, the way you think he thinks about you, it's been 2 years. Because I was like, he doesn't even know me. We haven't even talked in 2 years. He goes, do you know him? I'm like, no. He goes, well, maybe that's something to think about. Yeah. And I was like, son of a... So, of course, I'm storming the office, right? And it was him and one other guy that Chris and I just had big blowouts with. And I went in my office and I shut the door and I picked up the phone and I called both of them. And I got both their voicemails. Both of the guys' voicemails. I was like, look, dude, we don't like each other for obvious reasons. But those reasons are 2 years old. And I realized today, I don't know who you are anymore. So when people ask me about you and I tell them you're an asshole, it isn't fair to you. And I wanted to let you know two things. One, I apologize for the times I've done it because I don't even know you anymore. And two, I just want to let you know it won't come out of my mouth anymore unless we interact and you're
Wow.
still one. Then I'm going to still say it. But in all sincerity, I'm just calling it just to give you the apology you deserve, right? Leave this voicemail. Now, I'd love to tell everybody that both of them were so delighted. One guy called me back in tears and goes, dude, I never thought I would hear from you again, especially not this. He's like, of course I forgive you. He's like, the next time when you're in Vegas, let's connect. And we have big hug, great stuff. The other guy, he sent me a text and it went, got your message. Thanks for owning it. Like, and I was like, whatever, victory, right?
Mhm.
And about 3 or 4 weeks later, the guy called me and he goes, listen, man, the stuff you said about me, because it was on a show, like I was on a show watched by many, and this guy and I had an altercation, and they had asked about it. And I said, this guy, he's training people to be leaders. He couldn't lead someone out of a well-lit hallway. Like
Wow.
I'm like, he can't lead himself away from the bar. Like, because the guy was a raging alcoholic. Like I blew him up bad, in a really bad way. And it was not fair to his family or him. And he goes, the way that you blew me up cost me my business, most of it, and almost my family. He's like, you did so much damage with that. And I said, and there's no way I can make it right, but I'm sorry. And he goes, yeah, he goes, I'm not saying we're friends or anything. And he goes, but I appreciate you apologizing for what you did. I said,
First steps.
yep.
First
Fast
steps.
forward time, a month or two later, he reached back out. He's like, now that I've had time to really cool off more and think about it, he goes, I just want to tell you that meant more than you know. And I was like, dude, listen, if there's ever anything you need, I mean it in all sincerity, let me know. And we've talked maybe a handful of times in those past couple of years, but it all begins. You gotta forgive yourself for your own stupidity. That's why we don't humble ourselves enough to ask for help or forgiveness elsewhere. But I think once you look at yourself and you just tell them, like, man, I've done wrong. I know I've said things to people, I've done things that I shouldn't have. And that makes me a flawed and imperfect person, right? But by
As
the
we
grace
all
of God,
are.
I'm still breathing.
Yeah.
So who am I to hold on to stuff, that somebody else has done to me? Now,
Right.
if you did it to my wife, I ain't never letting go until you're not breathing. But to me, I like, and look, I'm just raw and unscripted, dude. Like, I just got to keep it real. I don't want people like, oh, he's a pastor, so he said Jesus, so that means he does everything right. No, I'm perfectly imperfect, which is why I don't tell people be like me ever.
Right. Yeah.
I can say, here are the mistakes I've made that you have the opportunity to learn from without making them, right? Don't take a pound of weed from a guy that walks out of a blueberry field, says 850 by Friday, and vanishes like Field of Dreams. Good life advice. Don't say yes to that deal. Just run, because otherwise a few months later, his nephews will try to kill you. Like, I can teach people from my mistakes, but I don't say be like me. Other than this, man, if you're married and your wife is not who you live and breathe for, then you need to be like me in that area, because that's a gift that you will never find anywhere else. Other than that, don't be like me. But like that, be like me.
Matt, this has been a phenomenal conversation. We've been going for nearly an hour. Thank you for your vulnerability, for your transparency, for your words of wisdom. I know beyond a shadow of doubt this is going to impact thousands of lives, if not more, over a period of time. Where can people get a hold of you and continue the conversation and learn more about Matt?
Man, if they just want to just rap and connect, probably the best way is really like head over to TikTok at real Mat Koenig. You can hit me up there on Instagram. There's Value Driven Coach. Or you can literally go to matkoenig.com, like just my name. But the site you had up, rockstarinfo.com, we didn't talk about, but I own a software company that does AI appointment setting for people. So that's what rockstarinfo.com is. It's way less rock and roll sounding than our name, but the amount of help we provide for our clients and the money they make, well, Mike will tell you, it's definitely rock star status. So yeah,
Sweet.
best way to get a hold of me is probably TikTok, or if people have been listening with the stuff, we're planting a church this fall, but we're already sharing it online now. So people can go to localchurchgathering.com and they can see what we're all about. The books my wife and I have written. I've had one Amazon bestseller. Woo!
Nice.
For a whole
Congratulations.
4 days. Hey, I'll take it. And then we've got a book on marriage on there that it's free. People just pay the shipping and handling, and they can grab any of our books for free. So yeah, man, if I can be a help to anybody, I'm just super grateful, and thank you so much. It's crazy how things come together, through our mutual friend Mike. So
Yeah.
I just appreciate the opportunity to just be able to have this conversation with you, dude. Thank you, appreciate you.
You are most certainly welcome. I'll be making snippets out of this and posting them. I'm going to put you backstage for a second. I'm going to finish out the show, but don't go anywhere so I can just still have a chat with you for a few seconds afterwards.
Sounds good, brother.
Awesome. Thank you. And there you have it, beautiful people. Thank you so much, Robert, for being here. I appreciate you sharing with us. Robert says here, I am grateful for that. Mia, the cat, lives here and has a need to cuddle. Awesome. So we got Mia the cat checking us out. Robert also says here, something new. I've been doing breath work daily. That's phenomenal. For those of you guys who are not into breath work, just do box breathing. Google box breathing. It's pretty amazing. Google 478 breathing. So I love that. Appreciate that, Robert. Robert also says, I concur. I'm doing the breath work alone. Yeah, you just do it. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal what it can do for your stress levels. I was just helping somebody with that the other day. I had them do the box breathing right in front of me, and they were like, holy shit, Chris, it works. And I'm like, yes, it does. I would never have thought that myself. Robert says, thank you both. Robert's Canadian. So he says, hey, so with that, so here's what the deal is, ladies and gentlemen. Take to heart what Matt said. It's about being honest, right? When you think about the whole conversation, if you came into the conversation halfway through, go back to the beginning and listen to it again. It's about honesty, right? You heard me talk about the AAA: awareness, acceptance, and action, right? You got to be aware. And you got to accept. And part of that acceptance is not saying, I accept that it was my fault. It's just accepting the situation for what it is. It is what it is, right? And you sit there and you go, okay, I've got the awareness. I've got the acceptance. I'm going to be honest with myself. And then you take action, right? You sit there and listen to what Matt said. In those situations where he was down in the lowest parts of his life, he took that action. He took the action of listening to his wife and saying, hey, listen, I can become that person. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be perfect, but I can become that person. God must be giving me this message because that's the person I'm supposed to be born into, not the results of my childhood, not the results of my egoic thinking and the partying and everything else. I'm supposed to become this beautiful soul who goes out there and serves other people and goes out there and gives to other people. Listen to that for yourself in your life. If you have people pouring into you and you're like, oh, that's not me, I don't deserve that and everything else, get honest and real with yourself. You're on a path, right? And he said it, Matt said also, right? You get to grow through these things, right? And listen and go back. And if you haven't been following me for any period of time, go and watch The Hero's Journey on YouTube. It's called the Joseph Campbell story, The Hero's Journey. It's about an hour and 20 minutes, I think it is. It's phenomenal in talking about how we go through these peaks and these valleys in our life. And let me ask you this question. I want you to be honest, again, honest with yourself. When have you learned and grown the most? When things were easy or when things were challenging? I know when things were challenging, not when they're easy. We don't learn shit when they're easy. So when we're going through those valleys in our life, let's not have, oh, I wish I wasn't going through this. Oh, this sucks. And oh, this is terrible. How about having that perspective shift? Ooh, what am I supposed to be learning from this? Right? There's power in questions. What am I supposed to be learning from this? Why is this message happening in this point in my life? Because guess what? That message is not going away. And I know lots of people out there might be listening to this, and there's something that's been reoccurring throughout your entire life, and it's going to continue to reoccur, right? Sometimes we get this little tap, and then we get a little nudge, and then we get a little shove, and then sometimes we get bam, right across the face. Something terrible happens in our life, and we're forced to deal with those situations because we've ignored all the messages. Don't ignore the messages. Get real and honest with yourself. Take a look around at the 5 people you're around the most. Do they support you? Do they push you? Are they honest with you? Do they tell you the truth? Or do they sit there and say, no, you're awesome. No, that person sucks. No, you have validation in being a victim. Nobody should be supporting the fact that you're a victim. Nobody should be supporting your excuses. Oh, it's okay that you're fat, blah, blah, blah. You're just a big bone. No, you're fat and you need to lose weight. And here, how about let's go for a walk every single day? How about I will go and quit sugar with you, right? Be a true friend. When you look at the 5 people you're around the most, and if you don't have somebody in your life, I call it the team, right? Somebody you trust, somebody who empowers you, somebody who holds you accountable, and somebody who's your mentor, and they can't be the same person. And I know so many of you guys out there have one person in your life. Oh, this person is everything to me. They're my confidant. They're my mentor. They're this, they're that. What happens if that person gets hit by a bus? What are you going to do? You need a team of people. You need to have a coach in your life. You need to have somebody who is holding you accountable. That's me. That's my little commercial from this. I have a group accountability coaching program that is phenomenal. It is completely, truly affordable. Get accountability in your life. Get honest with yourself. Start taking that imperfect action. Grow and look at yourself. Right now it's July. Imagine the person you could be by Christmas. You could be a completely different person. You could start 2025 and sit there and say, you know what? Instead of lying to myself, I'm going to keep my promises to myself. Imagine that. Keep your promises to yourself. What would happen in your life? Well, what results would you get if you kept your promises to yourself? Right? Go back and if you didn't do it while we were listening, write down 3 action items and do those action items and come back again next Tuesday and listen to the next conversation, whether it's just myself on a solo podcast or it's a guest, and continue to do that and continue to forge the person that you're supposed to be becoming. Don't stay in that victim status. Don't sit there and go, oh, no, the government should do this and point fingers. No, I'm going to get up and start doing the 5: hydration, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and vitamin D. Right? Your body's like 80% water. You need to be drinking water. If you're not drinking water and you're drinking soda and all that other shit, stop it. So many people are like, I feel like shit, Chris. I'm like, how much water do you drink? I don't drink water. Well, fucking drink water. I don't like water. Then fucking feel like shit. Be a dumbass. I don't care. It's your life. Stop drinking. Stop eating sugar. Oh, I'm not going to deprive myself. Then continue to drive your A1C up and then perhaps become diabetic. I've known so many people who said, oh, Chris, I'm not at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm not this. I'm not this. I'm 55 years old. I've known people for a long fucking time. They're on medication. I have a friend of mine that was in better shape than I am, but he got lazy and he got complacent and he got these excuses and he got around fucking people that didn't push him. And now he's on, I think, 18 different medications. He's striving to have open heart surgery, all these different things. And guess what that leads to? That leads to regret. And did you come into this world to be amazing, to have an incredible experience, to be alive? Or did you come into this world to bitch, piss, and moan and just to pay bills? I think you know the answer to that. What's up, Crystal Rye? Crystal's in the house. Go back and watch the show from the beginning. Guess what? We're going to be back here next week. Next week, who do we have? Who do we have on the Raw Unscripted show? Go to rawunscripted.com. Check out all the different shows. It's pretty phenomenal what we got going on. We have Kirsta Marie next week. Oh, you're going to dig her. You're going to dig her. Firecracker. So thank you guys for tuning in. Share the show out if you got value out of it, which I know you did. Share it out and say, hey, listen, I watched Chris and Matt, and here's what I got out of this. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for making it a top 10% podcast. Thank you for loving me. Anything I can do to serve you, reach out, but get in my group accountability coaching program. You will not regret it. I'm there to serve. It's ridiculously affordable. And now I'm going to go enjoy time with my family. I love you guys. Go out there, be kick-ass unstoppable, and we'll see you next time on the Raw Unscripted show. Cheers.